Hello. Now, welcome back to part 3 of the way too early kickoff pick'ems. Now, today we're going to be covering the Pacific region because we've done Americas, we've done EMEA. China's bracket hasn't been released yet officially, so even though we could see the seeding of how they finished in 2025 to try and guess what the bracket's going to look like, we can't do the pick'ems yet, so we're just going to wait for it to be officially announced. Now, before we get into the Pacific pick'ems, I would just quickly like to shout out again vctstats.com/rostermania, which is what we're using to refer the roster of every team. And as you can see here, some teams like Secret, T1, Gen G, and DFM, they haven't officially confirmed their roster. And most of these teams, it's fine. Like T1, there's 5 players. Gen G, who at the time of recording is currently playing Paper Rex in the 10 Radiant Invitational event, and they're currently playing the grand finals, and they're currently playing with Ziggs. So in this situation, I'll be taking Zinx as like the current 5 here as the team, and for DFM, they are the only team without a 5th player, like that's kind of listed here, but there have been talks of Foxy9 going there. And although it's not concrete, and we're not going to take it as concrete, but we'll be kind of using this to have a little bit of a guesstimate as to where DFM might land. Okay, so let's get started. Nongshim Secret is the first game. So looking at Nongshim Red Force, they just kept the team that they played in Ascension with, not VCT 2025, but Ascension 2025. Which the change was Persia's out and X-Ross is in, and RB is the IGL. So same team, they were middle of the pack last year in Pacific, 5th, 6th, pretty good team. I think X-Ross may be a firepower upgrade, so they could maybe have the potential to punch up here. And if we look towards Secret, they kept on Kelly S and Jesse Vash. Jesse Vash still likely to be remaining as the IGL here. They have signed Sylvan, and I believe Sylvan has played games for Team Secret so far. And the rumor is that they're going to be picking up 1010 and Berserks as well. 1010 played on Zeta in 2025, and Berserks played for Boom in 2025. And this team feels a bit like, we're not going to go too hard. Not going to pick up like amazing talent. They could have definitely picked up Patman, who now ended up on GE. Spoilers for global esports later. But Patman, like they could have had a 1-for-1 trade with PaperX. Like PaperX got Envy, they could have picked up Patman, but they didn't. They went for 1010 and Berserks as well, and Sylvan, which I think is a very strange decision. Quite a strange team here. If that's it, I don't think they're gonna be doing too hard. I'm just gonna go with Nongshim. Okay, looking at our next teams, we have Full Sense. Full Sense, if you didn't know, entered VCT in place of Talon. Talon having some financial issues, Riot removed them from VCT Pacific, and Full Sense was the one who came in and took their spot. Now, Full Sense picked up basically the whole Talon roster, but Cruz has been now moved to head coach position instead of the IGL in game, and Full Sense have kept on their player Leviathan, and yeah, so that's their roster. I think Leviathan's a very, very promising tier 2 player that I would have think that if Full Sense didn't come in, he might have even gotten a shot somewhere, maybe mid-season. I feel like some team would have taken a punt on him. I don't know about his English skills, so I don't know if that's very possible if like Talon were like the only Thai team. But anyways, I'm rambling. But my question with this team is who's gonna be the IGL. I think there's been rumors saying it's Leviathan, there's Jit Boys or whatnot, or Killua even, but we don't have a concrete answer. And as we look at their opponent's Zeta division, Zeta, where's Zeta? Okay, right there. Because Zeta keeping on Sugar Zero and XDL from last year's team or 2025's team, picking up Eco, picking up Epso, and picking up Shota. Shota played earlier in the in the season for Zeta in 2025. Got dropped halfway through. I think he was very hyped up to be kind of the next Laz, right? Kind of this like huge name, huge fragger, huge potential player in the Japan region. I think we've seen pretty good stuff from Eco, and absolutely went off at Red Bull home ground. And I like that choice of keeping on XQQ as the head coach. And even though it's not listed here, they brought in Mini as a advisor kind of role, and I think that's huge for Zeta. I think this roster could do a lot of damage. I don't think it's gonna be a top table team. I think Sugar Zero will still be IGLing, which we've seen some Sugar Hero moments, but I don't know, I'm still not too high on Zeta. I think Full Sense, even though we don't know what their IGLing situation is gonna be like, we've seen how good these guys can be, and with Leviathan coming in, it's definitely a firepower upgrade. Again, IGL is the only thing that begs the question now of what's gonna happen. I do trust Cruz's vision as the coach, similar to what I've said about Angel in the EMEA video. I think I'm just gonna go with Full Sense here. I trust that they're gonna be able to do something good. Okay, next game. Very interesting, Vero versus Global Esports. Now, if you didn't know, SLT Songnam, the Ascension team, I think the org itself didn't, pass Riot standards or whatnot, but they are, so all of their players, the entire roster and the coaches, got acquired by a Japanese org named Vero, but it is the SLT team. So it's Cinder, Klaus, Zuna, LP, and Zexy. And LP would be the IGL of this team. Now, SLT, if you didn't watch my Soup Crow streams, they are one of my favorite teams to watch. I am very, very excited to see how this team is gonna do, and I have very, very, I feel like they're gonna be able to do a lot of damage this year, and I won't be surprised if they qualify to an international. But if you look towards Global Esports side, they kept Yudotan, they kept Crystal. I think, very good players to keep, very reasonable. They picked up Autumn, Zevi 8K from Naus, and Patman. I think you all know Patman, Paper Rex. And interestingly, they got rid of their head coach Elevated to pick up Frost. I think Global Esports might be their best roster so far, but if you look at their matchup here, they're playing against Varel. Do I think they can win? Absolutely. But I'm really liking what SLT are doing, or Varel are doing. I'm gonna go for them. I think I'm gonna take my punt, take Varel in this matchup. Okay, last match of upper round 1. It's DFM versus Genji. Okay, again, DFM not knowing quite what they're doing with their roster, but so far it looks like they're keeping just 4 of their players: Akame, Sess, Mei, and Jian, and only confirming that they have let go of Jinbong. I think Jinbong was alright. He was a pretty good Sentinel player. Obviously, he's been in the scene for a while, so he had a lot of experience. And DFM, if we are looking at this team, the star player is gonna be Mei. It's gonna be a system built around Mei. And if the rumors of getting Foxy9 are true, I think, it could be a scary team. Could be challenging for mid-table Pacific. With things going in their way, could even make champs, really, which, spoiler alert, I might be predicting them to do. Anyways, let's look towards Genji, who is Foxy9's current team, but he is currently on the bench. Genji keeping Karen, Texture, and Ash, bringing in Lakia, who was on Genji in 2025 but was on the bench. But now he's promoted to the starting roster as the IGL, and they have brought in a player called Zinx from DRX Academy. Now, Zinx has been looking good, and Genji is another team that I'm very excited to watch and have been very, very high on. And I think, keeping the coaching staff, all 3, Solo, HK, and HSK, and Perry, huge W. Obviously, losing Munchkin is a big deal, but so far, they've been looking pretty good. I am saying this, they are still playing Paper X, and I haven't seen the match results, but I think they have enough to get over DFM. I think, DFM, I can't really give them too much right now, as much as I am a DFM fan and I want to cope for them, but I think Genji are too strong of a team. Okay, moving on to upper round 2, we have Nongshim versus T1. Let's quickly take a look at T1's roster. They are keeping Meteor, Buzz, Izu, and Stacks from their roster this year that won, Masters Bangkok. And they actually dropped TH down back to the academy team and brought in Munchkin, who is going to be the primary IGL of this team here. And they have replaced Autumn, their old head coach, with KDG. So far, T1 has been looking very hot. They won Soup, obviously. Munchkin, amazing pickup. It's only an upgrade. My only concern was that, how would Stacks do, dropping DH down and keeping Stacks. But it seems like Stacks can frag out. He still has it in him. So I think it's pretty simple here that we're just going to go with T1. The next game is DRX versus Full Sense. DRX just keeping their roster from this year, keeping their champs roster. They made third, very reasonable decision with that. Even though I have faith in Full Sense that they're gonna be good, but DRX still made third in champs, and I think Hyunmin, he is so good. I'm going with DRX. Next game, Paper X Vero. I think this will be a very, very fun game to watch. And looking at Paper X's roster, they just kept their roster that they won Toronto with, but obviously dropping Patman for Envy. I think on paper, this is a firepower upgrade. Now, we don't know about the intangible stuff, like the vibes. We often hear in the comms, Patman, pushing on the brakes for these guys to, calm down a little bit. Whether they have learned their lesson with that, and whether they can do that without Patman actively shouting at them in the comms, we don't know. But if you're just looking at it on paper, firepower wise, it is an upgrade. And they also got in Wendler, a pretty well respected coach as an assistant coach, so always good to have more coaching stuff. And even though I really like Vero, I really like LP, I really like these players, I think Paper X is a bit tough an opponent, but I think this will be a good game to watch. This will be definitely a very chaotic one, a very fun one. Next, we have a tale as old as time, RQ Gen G. If we look at RQ's roster, just kept their roster. Ewok obviously taking a step back from the coaching role, and they have brought in Jovi as their head coach. So, not too much changing towards the RQ side. And RQ has been known as the Korean Slayers. But I'm gonna go Gen G. We've seen Gen G beat them. Obviously, it's an off-season tournament, so we shouldn't read too much into it. But if I'm being honest, I'm a bit of an RQ doubter. This team has let me down a lot. I've always had some expectation for them to do some damage, and they always just fall flat. So I'm gonna predict against them a lot of the time. And if they do well, I would take it as a good surprise. I really like Crazy Guy. I think Jemkin's insane. X-Vero, back in where he was known as Tapertol in Boom. Kushi is great. And Monyet, he's such a fun guy to watch. But I'm just not gonna predict them for now, and I'll be surprised if they can do damage. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, going on to the middle bracket, let's speed things up a little bit. I think some of these stuff are quite easy to get through. RQ Secret, just gonna go with RQ. Vero Zeta, I think we're just gonna go with Vero. Don't think much has to be explained here, although I think Zeta has a pretty strong roster now, and with Mini there, they could be doing some damage. But I think early in the season, Vero, the players known each other so long. Yeah, I think that just beats out a newer team like Zeta. Next, Global Esports Full Sense. Now, this is a very interesting game. It's Frost versus his old team, basically. I think this game is a 50-50. I'm actually gonna go GE. Here. Like I said, I think this is GE's strongest roster yet. I think it's a lot of talent on that roster. Not saying Full Sense isn't gonna be a good roster, but again, there's a lot of questions on the IGLs and whatnot. So I'm gonna give this to Global. Next, Nongshim versus DFM. I'm sorry, my Detonation fans. We can't. I can't in good faith give it to DFM as much as I want to. I just can't right now. Not when we don't know their roster yet. Of course, this is my fault for doing this too early. But also, Nongshim, they are a good team. They are a good team, and they're gonna be hard to beat. Okay, let's do the lowest now. The first team that's gonna be eliminated, I think, it'll be Team Secret. I'm sorry to all the Team Secret fans, but I think this is a bit of what we come to expect at this point, especially looking at their new roster. I don't think it's a roster that really excites anyone. I think, yeah, I don't think there's much in it for what might be their last year in VCT. Next, we have Full Sense versus DFM. Again, I think, DFM, I definitely have them. My bold prediction is that they're going to be making an international this year, but it won't be this one. I think it's a bit rough. Like, they're playing very good teams, Gen G, which I'm very high on. I have Gen G over RRQ. Look at how far I have Gen G going. And we're going to see more about Nongshim later, and I think we all know how good Full Sense is. It's just looking at talent this year, right? So it's a rough one. I think it's a pretty rough bracket for them. So I'm sorry, DFM will be eliminated in lower round 1. Okay, going back up to the uppers, T1 DRX. Very, very interesting game. I think this could be a clash of two Korean titans. And I'm gonna give this DRX. I think, his Stacks and Buzz versus his old team, the old guys versus the new guys. And I just have faith that DRX and Termi are gonna find something in the meta, and they're gonna cook like they did in Champs, made it all the way to 3rd place. Yeah, I'm just gonna have faith in DRX. Next, Paper X Gen G. Now, the game, this matchup is currently being played as I'm recording this. And just as I've predicted in this, just take this as my prediction of what's gonna happen in the match currently. I think Paper X are gonna win it. I think Gen G losing Munchkin. Again, I've seen some very good stuff from Lakia. His fragging overall has improved, but losing Munchkin is still a big deal. And yeah, I'm just gonna favor Paper X here. They might be one of the best teams mechanically in the world right now. Okay, moving on to middle round 2, RRQ Vel. I think it's gonna be RRQ. I think RRQ keeping their entire roster. I'm gonna go Vero. I changed my mind halfway through because, I was talking about earlier how RRQ have constantly let me down. I'm just not gonna predict them so that I can be pleasantly surprised. I'm just gonna keep to that for now. Again, call me a hater, alright? But I would like to be surprised when RRQ do damage. And, I might be biased to Vero as well. Who knows? Okay, moving on. Global Esports Nongshim. I'm gonna say Nongshim here. I think, Nongshim, again, they are a very strong mid-table Pacific team in 2025. And I think that won't change too much going into next year. In fact, they might be even stronger with Xpros coming in. That guy is pretty insane. Okay, lower round 2 now. Global Zeta. I'm gonna give this to Global. I think Global has enough to be able to get through Zeta, who I think would be still a bit shaky. I think even with the vast talent that this roster of Zeta might have, they might still be lacking a bit. I feel like the Japanese region as a whole might be a little bit behind, at least in Kickoff. Okay, last game of lower round 2, we have Full Sense RRQ. I'm sticking to it. As much as I think all of these RRQ games I've predicted so far could be 50-50s, it's exactly because I'm not feeling exactly one way or the other that I'm not gonna go for RRQ. take this as a blessing if you're a RRQ fan, because every time I believe in them, they lost. Alright, moving on to upper final, DRX PaperX. Now, DRX did beat PaperX at Champs, but again, I think PaperX overall has gotten an upgrade, so they are just gonna be stronger. They are now probably comfortably the best team in Pacific. That's my prediction. So I'll have them as the first team qualified to Master Santiago right there. Next, Vero T1. I think Vero, as much as they are a team that stuck together and they have played T1 in Soup and they've gotten the experience playing in, you know, these tier 1 situations, kind of, I think, you know, they still kind of lack that depth of a real tier 1 team against what is a top team. I think what is basically a top 4 team in Pacific in T1. So yeah, I think it's gonna be very tough for them to get through, but you know, I'll be surprised if they do win this match, is what I'm saying here. Next, Nongshim Genji. Now, the last time Nongshim played Genji, they actually won, which kinda screwed Genji's stage 2 up and eventually led them to not making champs. Do I think they're gonna be able to do it again? I think they are going to. Again, the loss of Munchkin. Yeah, I think, you know, Nongshim is getting better and better, and Genji, I think, suffered a pretty big loss here, losing out on one of the best IGLs in the region. Okay, next, Global Vero. I'm gonna give this to Vero. I think, yeah, just raw talent wise, not saying that Global doesn't have talent, but you know, I think just like in match 1 here, it's gonna be a little bit of a similar story where Vero kinda just owns them a little bit. Not saying it's gonna be not close at all, but I feel like just aim wise, Vero is just gonna show up and take down GE. Next, Fusen's Genji. Now, Fusen's Genji is a very interesting one, but I'm gonna give this edge towards Genji again. I think Fusen's, by this time, they should be a little bit more stable with the IGLing situation figured out, but I think, like I said, even though Genji lost Munchkin, I'm still liking a lot of the stuff of what Lakia's doing, and you know, Texture and Karon are still on this team. Like, these guys are insane, and Ash has been stepping it up a lot lately, fragging wise, so yeah, I'm gonna go with Genji here. Next, T1 Nongshim. Again, in this Korean teams matchup, it's always kind of messy. But I'm going to give this a T1. I think T1 are a very, very strong Korean team. I think it's a bit hard for some of these Korean teams to beat one another. I feel like, you know, most of these teams play quite a similar way, like thinking about the game. They like to play formulaic. But, you know, I think Vero are an exception. Nongshim maybe as well with Francis IGLing, but we'll see what happens when RB takes the reins. But yeah, let's quickly do a middle final as well. T1 DRX. I'm gonna give this rematch over the T1. I think KDG, after having fought DRX once, I feel like the prep is gonna be there, and I think, you know, I feel like they're gonna be able to show up. I feel like the DRX does not win this rematch. It's just pure vibes, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, moving on, Vero versus Genji. I'm gonna give this to Genji. I feel like Vero gonna have a much tougher time against Korean teams. They could definitely win, but I think, you know, the Korean teams stylistically have an edge over Vero, especially with a team like Genji who can match you firepower wise, with Texture going crazy. Karon could pop off as well, even Ash sometimes now, and Zinx. Yeah, I think Vero is gonna have a very tough time beating Genji. And Genji Nongshim, I'm gonna give this one this time over to Genji. I feel like by this time Genji, Solo, HSK, Perry, their coaching staff have done their work, done their research on Nongshim. I think they've played Nongshim before, and I don't know, something about rematches I feel like always go the other way. Which leaves us at the lower final, Genji DRX, which is the last and third team to make it to Master Santiago. I'm gonna say it's DRX. I feel like DRX, again, Like I said earlier, I feel like Termi is gonna find something that's gonna just work. Other than those two games against T1 and Paper X, I do have them losing out there, but I feel like against Genji, that I would say is not as strong as Genji this year. They can pull it. They can pull through, and T1 and Paper X are basically kind of super teams in their own right. So it would be tough beating them regardless. And I feel like DRX would just have enough, like shreds wise, Termi finding something weird in the meta to just beat out Genji. And we're just gonna lock it in. We're just gonna submit pick'ems. And how badly is this pick'ems gonna do? Probably bad, just like my other regions. I don't really, as much as I try to give a reason for everything, it's all bullshit. It's all vibes. It's all bias. With that, I'll see you guys for the VCT China pick'ems when the bracket drops. Goodbye.